Have you ever been in a conversation that just stopped? Like, not a natural pause, but that specific kind of silence where you can actually feel the air getting heavier, your chest tightens, your brain starts spinning like a broken hard drive, and suddenly you're hyper aware of every single breath you're taking. That silence has weight, it has texture, and it feels like it's pressing down on your skull. I want you to think about the last time this happened to you. Take a second. Maybe it was a first date or a work meeting or just talking to someone at a party who you thought was cool. The conversation was going okay. Nothing spectacular but functional. And then it just died. No warning, no fade out, just dead air. And in that moment, your entire nervous system went into panic mode. Here's what makes it worse. That silence feels like it lasts forever. But in reality, it's probably been 3 seconds. 3. But those 3 seconds feel like you're drowning in slow motion. Your internal monologue goes absolutely feral. It's screaming at you to say something, anything. But every potential sentence sounds stupid before it even leaves your mouth. So you just sit there, frozen, while your face does that weird half-smile thing that fools absolutely nobody. Oh Lord, it is good to be here with you. If that scenario made your stomach turn, you aren't alone. We've all been there, sitting in the wreckage of a conversation that crashed for no clear reason. And here's the part that really sucks. We tend to assume it's our fault, like we broke some invisible social rule or revealed ourselves as boring. We replay the moment over and over, trying to figure out where we went wrong. But listen closely to this distinction, because it's critical. Awkward silences don't happen because you're awkward. They happen because conversation is a collaborative sport, and sometimes both players just miss the ball. It's not about you being deficient. It's about two human brains trying to sync up in real time, and occasionally the connection drops. That's it. No deeper meaning, no character flaw, just a temporary glitch in the social matrix. The problem is that our brains don't interpret it that way. When silence hits, we experience it as social rejection. There's actual neuroscience behind this. The same parts of your brain that process physical pain also light up during moments of social discomfort. That crushing feeling in your chest isn't metaphorical. Your nervous system is genuinely registering the silence as a threat. It's telling you that you're being evaluated and found lacking. And here's where it gets messy. Because we feel threatened, we do stupid crap to fill the void. We start rambling about nothing. We ask weird questions that come out of left field. We laugh at things that aren't funny. I once tried to save a dying conversation by explaining the entire plot of a movie the other person hadn't seen. Not a summary. The entire plot, scene by scene. It was a 2-hour movie. I still think about that sometimes when I'm trying to fall asleep. The thing is, everyone else is experiencing that same panic. The person across from you is also feeling the pressure, also scrambling for something to say, also worried they're the reason the conversation tanked. We're all just anxious humans pretending we know what we're doing. But because we're so focused on our own discomfort, we forget that the other person is probably drowning too. Psychologists have a name for this shared delusion. They call it the spotlight effect. We assume everyone is watching us way more closely than they actually are. So when silence happens, we think all eyes are on us, judging our failure to keep things flowing. But in reality, the other person is probably so busy panicking about their own performance that they barely notice you're panicking too. We're both actors in the same terrible play, each convinced we're the only one bombing. Here's what nobody tells you about awkward silence. It's not the silence itself that's the problem. It's what we do in response to it. The frantic scrambling, the forced laughter, the desperate topic changes that land like wet concrete. Those reactions make everything worse because they signal to the other person that something is wrong. And once both people start acting like the conversation is in crisis mode, it actually becomes a crisis. So let me give you something to hold on to. The next time you feel that weight pressing down, that panic starting to rise, I want you to remember this. The silence isn't measuring you. It's just empty space. An empty space can be filled with intention instead of desperation. You don't need to be clever or funny or fascinating. You just need to be deliberate, because the person who owns the silence instead of fearing it is the person who turns it into something else entirely. We tend to think of conversation as this smooth, continuous flow, but that's not how it actually works. Real conversation is full of pauses, restarts, and moments where both people are just existing together. The goal isn't to eliminate silence. The goal is to stop treating it like a fire that needs to be put out immediately. Because when you stop seeing it as a threat, you start seeing it as an opportunity. And that shift in perspective changes everything. All right, so you're sitting in that silence. The air is thick, your brain is spinning, and you need something to say that doesn't sound like you're drowning. Here's the good news. There are specific verbal moves that work almost every time. And once you learn them, they become muscle memory. Think of these as your emergency toolkit for when conversation flatlines. The first one I call the self-aware callback. This is where you acknowledge the silence itself, but you do it with a light touch, almost like you're both in on the joke. Something like, well, that got quiet fast. Or, guess we just ran out of small talk, huh? What makes this work is that you're naming the elephant in the room without making it awkward. You're turning the tension into something shared instead of something shameful. The other person almost always laughs because you just gave them permission to stop pretending everything is fine. Here's why this lands. It shows social awareness without desperation. You're not scrambling to fill the void with nonsense. You're acknowledging reality, which makes you seem confident even if you're internally panicking. The key is delivery. You have to say it like it's no big deal, like you're commenting on the weather. If you say it with anxiety in your voice, it becomes what you're trying to avoid. But if you say it casually, almost amused, it resets the entire dynamic. The second technique is what I call the vulnerability pivot. This is where you redirect the conversation by admitting something real about yourself. Not trauma dumping, not oversharing, just a genuine moment of human honesty. Something like, I'm terrible at these kinds of events, to be honest. Or, I always forget how to do small talk when I'm tired. This works because vulnerability is magnetic. The moment you drop the social performance, the other person feels safe to do the same. I learned this one the hard way. I was at a networking thing, trying way too hard to seem impressive, and the conversation just died. So I said, kind of accidentally, I have no idea what I'm doing here. And the other person visibly relaxed and said, oh, thank God, me neither. We ended up talking for an hour. Turns out we were both pretending to be someone we weren't. And the silence was the pressure of maintaining those fake versions collapsing. The third move is the redirect question, but it has to be the right kind of question. Not, so what do you do? Not, how do you know the host? Those are autopilot questions that go nowhere. Instead, ask something that requires a real answer. Something like, what's been taking up most of your brain space lately? Or, what's something you're looking forward to? These questions bypass small talk and go straight to actual human stuff. The reason these work is specificity. Broad questions get broad answers. But when you ask someone what's occupying their mental real estate, they have to actually think. And thinking pulls people out of panic mode. It gives them something concrete to grab onto. Plus, these questions signal that you're interested in them as a person, not just filling dead air. That distinction matters more than you'd think. Here's another one I use constantly, the observation offering. This is where you comment on something in your shared environment, but you do it in a way that invites response. Not nice weather or cool place. Those are conversational dead ends. Instead, this playlist is oddly specific. Like, who made a Spotify mix of only songs from 2007? Or, I just noticed every single person here is holding their drink with both hands. Are we all that nervous? What makes this work is that you're giving the other person something to react to. You're not asking them to generate content from nothing. You're handing them a prompt that's already interesting. And because it's about the shared environment, it feels collaborative instead of interrogative. You're both observing the same thing, which creates an instant micro connection. Now here's the move that sounds counterintuitive but works incredibly well. The comfortable silence gambit. Sometimes the best response to silence is to just let it exist for a moment longer than feels natural. Not forever, not awkwardly. Just a few extra seconds where you're clearly present and comfortable. Then, when you do speak, you say something thoughtful instead of rushed. Something like, you know what? I was just thinking about what you said earlier about, and you reference something from earlier in the conversation. This technique works because it demonstrates emotional regulation. Most people panic and fill silence immediately. But if you can sit in it for even 3 extra seconds and then respond with intention, you signal that you're not controlled by social anxiety. Plus, by referencing something they said earlier, you show you were actually listening. That combination is rare enough that it makes you memorable. The last tool I'll give you is what I call the meta conversation shift. This is where you zoom out and talk about the conversation itself or the situation you're both in. Something like, I feel like we're both trying really hard here, which is kind of funny. Or, is it just me, or is this whole situation kind of surreal? This works because it breaks the fourth wall. You're not playing the social game anymore. You're acknowledging that there is a game, and that's weirdly liberating for both people. Here's the thing about all these techniques. They work because they're honest. They're not tricks or manipulations. They're just different ways of being a real human in a moment when everyone else is pretending. The person who can navigate silence with intention instead of panic is the person everyone remembers. Not because you're smooth or clever, but because you made them feel less alone in the awkwardness. And that feeling sticks with people long after the conversation ends.